Hi, my name is Lauren Kearney, and I'm here to talk today about how PMs lead with prompts in the age of LLMs. So, a little bit about me. I am the director of product at Twitch for the platforms and services and community health orgs here at Twitch. I've been at Twitch for about 5 years. I started on the viewer experience team focused on search, recommendations, machine learning for discovery. Prior to that, I worked at Unity inside their AI department, building out experimentation and remote config tools for Unity developers. I spent the majority of my product management career focused on growing lifetime value, looking really at growth and monetization of end users inside digital entertainment products. I am also a mom. I am a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and for better or worse, someone who live streams parts of her life on Twitch under the handle A Mom in Tech. So part of the reason that I'm sharing that with you is because dog fooding is a really important part of product management. It's always been a part of my philosophy. Dog fooding just means using your own products so that you can understand how they work, where they're broken. And that's been my philosophy since early in my career. I learned the hard way by shipping something that had a bug in it without testing it first. This becomes even more important as AI becomes more central to the products that we build because LLMs don't behave like traditional code. The product experience, it doesn't live in a wireframe. It actually lives in a moment of interaction between a model and a user. So in the past, we're only looking at the unpredictable nature of users. And now we're looking at the unpredictable nature of models and the interactions that they have with our customers. As product managers, the only way we stay close to what matters is by getting our hands on it or dog fooding, using it, breaking it, rewriting it. That is how we learn, and that is how we lead. So if there's only one thing that you take away from this presentation, I hope it's that. Today, we're going to talk about AI-generated products and what guides them. It's the prompt. In traditional software, the product is the interface, the workflows, the buttons, the backend logic. But when you're building with a large language model, the heart of the product is often invisible to the user. It's the prompt. It's the instruction that guides the model's behavior. Prompts are kind of like a hybrid of UX design, product requirements, and model level instructions. It's both interface and behavior. It determines the tone, the accuracy, the helpfulness, even the ethics of what's being generated. It's the difference between a tool that feels magical and one that feels chaotic, a product that is useful versus a product that's useless. So when I say the prompt is the product, I'm not being metaphorical. I'm just saying that this is where the value lives now. This is where the user experience begins, and in some cases, it's where the user experience ends. And just like in any other core system in a product, prompts need to be designed, tested, iterated, and experimented with. So let's start with the shift that we're all seeing. Products are being built with large language models instead of hard-coded logic. And we really want to look at what's changed and what hasn't changed. So in traditional products, especially web or mobile apps, the experience is built from logic and flows. You define if-else conditions, structured APIs, user flows, basically step-by-step instructions. Everything is coded, everything's predictable and linear. The product does what you tell it to, exactly how you wrote it. But with LLM-powered products, things are different. Instead of defining every possible condition in code, you write a prompt, which is very much just a piece of language, and the model generates a response on the fly. The response isn't hard-coded. It's probabilistic. It's based on billions of examples that the model has seen during training. So now, instead of the buttons and the user flow and the screen being the interface, language is the interface between what the product is and how it behaves, and that is a really big shift. Despite all that, the fundamentals of great product management work hasn't changed. So LLM products really only just shift how we build, but not why we build. PMs still prioritize the right problems, the user value, the business outcome. It's only the implementation surface that has shifted from code to language. Just like before, your role as a product manager is to ask, what problem are we solving? Who are we solving it for? What is the experience and how should users feel when they're interacting with the product? Why are we building this feature now? And what is the impact on the business? So yes, a lot has changed for us from a technology perspective. We are using prompts now instead of logic, but the craft of product management still holds. So even though the interface and the tools have changed, our North Stars, user needs, business outcomes, impact, those things haven't changed at all. So now we understand that prompt is the product. Let's get into what a prompt really is. At first glance, a prompt is just a piece of text. It could look like write a welcome message for a new user. But under the hood, a good prompt is more like a behavioral specification. A good prompt is clear, it's scoped, it's aligned with a user goal. It's really, really similar to a user story. And just like you wouldn't give your development team a vague ticket, you don't want to give your model a vague instruction. So when you write a prompt, you're not just giving the model a task, write a welcome message to a new user. You're shaping how it behaves in response. So we need to add a bunch of details to the prompt so that the model knows how to behave. The components of a good prompt include the role. So you want to tell the model who it's supposed to be. So, for example, you are a friendly customer support agent, or you are a precise technical writer. Just like people, the model behaves differently depending on the role that it's asked to take on. I'm sure in some cases you behave differently in work than you do at home. The model's role is similar. From there, you need to give instructions or the task itself. The task could be summarize this article in one paragraph, or a task could be something like every time the user asks a question, ask 3 follow-up questions. So this tells the model specifically what to do, not just what to talk about, but really how to approach it, how to behave. And that leads us to tone. This is really where the brand of your product shines through. The responses could be formal, they can be playful, empathetic, or concise, but you need to provide that information in the prompt. This is what helps your product feel like your product and not feel like a robot or feel like a reskin of ChatGPT. In addition, you want to be able to define the format. Is the response that you want your user to get? Is it a list? Is it a paragraph, a JSON, a markdown? You can and you should specify the structure. This makes it a lot easier to integrate your model into the product and also improves consistency for your users so they know what expected format to receive when they're interacting with the model. Lastly, we look at boundaries and guardrails. This is where you say what not to do. And I can't help but think of my 2-year-old when I give my 2-year-old instructions. I often provide boundaries and guardrails. Something like, please go sit on the gray couch over there. Sit on the couch on your bottom. Don't hang off by your head or by your fingertips, and don't put your fingertips on the floor. In the workplace, you might give some guardrails and boundaries, like if you don't know the answer, say, I'm not sure, or don't make up facts, stay within the document provided. These are all good examples of boundaries and guardrails for a prompt rather than a 2-year-old. And this helps reduce hallucinations and it keeps the model behavior aligned with product goals and brand trust. So again, a prompt isn't just a string of words, it's a product design in disguise. And this is where product managers really shine. You're already good at writing user stories and product specs, and a prompt is the same. It carries all the same responsibility and details and thoughtfulness that you would put into a traditional user story. So now that we know a prompt is a behavioral spec, the next question is, how do you write a good one? Just like any other product element, prompts need intentional design. And so I'm going to walk through what the key ingredients are of a good prompt. First, you want to make sure that your prompt is clear. Clarity is everything. If the prompt is vague or overloaded, the model might go off track. So instead of saying, write something nice, you could say, write a 1-sentence compliment about someone's cooking skills. Clear prompts reduce the unpredictability of what the model might do. It gives you confidence and it gives your customer knowledge of what to expect when it interacts with the model. Secondly, you want your prompt to be context rich. The model isn't psychic. It is not limitlessly knowledgeable. The model is basically just a big mirror reflecting a bunch of training data that it's seen in the past. So you really need to give it relevant details to do a good job for the task at hand. If your user just placed an order, your prompt could include, the user ordered a wool sweater in burgundy, thank them, and offer care tips. This tiny bit of context goes a really long way in making the response feel personal and relevant for your user. Third, you want your prompt to be well scoped. A good prompt defines a task precisely. A prompt that says, summarize this, is a lot less precise than summarize this article in 3 bullets. Adding additional details to the scope of what the task is gives your model the information it needs to behave in the way that you want it to. As part of this, this is also the place where you can give your product personality. If your brand is playful, your prompts could say things like sound upbeat and friendly, like a helpful teammate. And this makes the model feel native to your product and not bolted on. Lastly, you want to test it. Just like anything else you would build as a product manager, prompts need to be tested and iterated on. What works in one context might fail in another. Great prompt design includes running side-by-side comparisons, collecting feedback, and tuning for consistency. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can achieve that in the next couple of slides. So every product manager loves a framework. So today I want to share a PM's framework for prompting. I like to think about it in 4 parts, and if you're a PM, these should feel really familiar to you. It mirrors how we already think about almost any feature. What you need to do is you need to think about, what does this do? How does this feel for users? What could go wrong? Big one. And why does this matter? So first, what should the model do? That's the specification. So that's the functional heart of the prompt. What is the task? Just like a product spec, you're defining very clear instructions. Second, what should it feel like? This is the experience. This is about tone, voice, personality. This is what I was mentioning earlier about brand and letting your brand shine through. As product managers, we work with designers to shape experiences user love. Now the prompts can give us power to design that feeling directly. Of course, still work with your designers, but think about how they design, how they have empathy for users when you're generating these prompts. This is really where the human part of the experience comes in. Third, what should it avoid? These are the guardrails. Just like every product needs constraints, your prompt does too. Here's where you define what the model should do. So some examples that are pretty common are things like, don't make up facts, don't give legal or health advice. That's a big one. Don't reference anything outside of this conversation. Guardrails are where we reduce harm, keep the model behavior aligned with brand, and we build user trust. It's also a place where you can ensure compliance and adhere to any regulations that your product might be under. Fourth, the impact. This is, what outcome are we driving? This is the part that the PM can never forget. Just because the model generates something that sounds good doesn't mean that it's useful. You have to ask, did it help the user accomplish the goal? Did it help me drive my KPIs or my key performance indicators? In my career, I've always looked at conversion, engagement, and retention. So these are the same metrics that I would look at when writing my prompt and analyzing the impact that it has on the business. Impact makes sure that you're not just shipping clever prompts, but valuable ones. And it's a really important part of our framework. So the framework altogether is, prompt is specification, experience, guardrails, and impact. This is just product thinking applied to a new layer of technology. So if you're already good at designing features, you're already good at prompt design. You just may not know it yet. So let's look at an example. This is a bit of an emotionally charged consumer-facing example, assuming that, you work on a social app and a user messages a chatbot and says, I think my account was hacked. What do I do? We can apply our framework to the 2 prompts to make a determination about which one is more effective prompt. It almost immediately becomes clear. So prompt A is typical of what a team might use early on. It says, respond to a user reporting a potential security issue. Okay, that sounds fine, but if you look closer, the spec is super vague. It doesn't explain to the model how to respond. The tone might default to something cold or even confusing. There's no guardrail, so the model might respond with, don't worry about it, or that doesn't seem to be a problem. And because that the model might say that, the impact that could have is you could lose your customers' trust, you could lose them as a customer altogether, or they could be quite alarmed by the language and the tone of the model. Prompt B takes a product thinking approach. Now, I want to say that this is a relatively short prompt. So it is a bit longer than the previous example, but a robust, context-filled prompt with guardrails probably wouldn't fit on this slide, depending on what the task was at hand. This one's better, right? So it clearly defines the task. It says to reassure, explain, and escalate. It instructs the model to use an empathetic and professional tone. It includes boundaries like don't blame the customer, don't make unsupported claims, and it's designed for impact. It basically says that the goal here is to calm the user down and guide them forward in the progress. and to preserve trust in the progress. This is really where PMs add value by shaping these prompts that lead to the right user behavior, not just a grammatically correct output. So this example shows why prompts isn't just a technical task, it's product design and should follow the same rigorous thinking that you apply to your other products. And you wouldn't ship a sign-up flow without testing whether the button works, right? Same goes for prompts. Just like with front-end QA, you want to check for tone mismatches, hallucinations, vague language, and unhelpful edge case responses. So now we're at the point where we have our prompt, we wrote it up, and we're ready to start testing. Let's talk a little bit about prompt testing and how to approach it. So prompt testing is really about quality assurance. It's not optimization. It's meant to be done before your product goes live. You want to make sure it behaves correctly. These are things that we discussed earlier. Is the output helpful? Is it on brand? Does it make sense with clear and messy inputs? This is a big one, right? So users are unpredictable. They're using language to make requests. Everybody communicates in a different way. So you really want to make sure to test whether or not your model can handle that. The third one is, are there hallucinations? Does the model respond with vague language? Are there tone issues? So you can create a small bank of test inputs, some clean, some a little bit odd, and then you evaluate your prompt variance using a rubric, maybe 3 or 5 dimensions that are relevant to your business. Some examples could be, is this helpful? Is this confusing? Is it accurate? Is it on tone? Is it trustworthy? Honestly, it's not really rocket science. It's just UX testing applied to language. So you want to do this before you ever test with users. And there's a lot of tools out there that you can use. You can do manual testing with input sets. You can score and compare outputs. You can use ChatGPT, Claude, or Prompt Layer to do some of this variant testing that I'm speaking of. This isn't some mysterious AI workflow. It's just good product practice applied to a new medium, which takes us to our prompt QA loop. If you've ever optimized a checkout flow, tested onboarding copy, or iterated on a support experience, you already know how to do this. It takes the things that PMs are already good at and it just applies it to prompts. So we define success, we prototype variants, we test with real users, and then we iterate based on data. This can be done before your prompt is launched and after. So we're going to walk through how it works. First and foremost, you want to define success. You want to start with a good idea of what good looks like, what success looks like. And this isn't just about correctness of the model. It's about whether the output aligns with your product goals and your user needs. Success criteria should be tied to real product outcomes. And so your KPIs don't really change when you're working with a prompt or you're working with a model. Some examples could be reduced support tickets, increased completion rate, higher satisfaction. Where possible, you want all success criteria to be measurable and objective. This helps you drive these experiments forward into production and scale them to more users once the results are in. From there, you want to design prompt variants. Designing variants involves creating different versions of your prompt. I like to think of them as recipes for how you interact with the LLM. It includes tweaking elements like the content, which we talked a lot about. So changing the wording, the phrasing, or the instructions of your prompts to see how the model responds. You can use different prompt engineering techniques by experimenting ways to guide the LLM's outputs. Some examples are chain of thought prompting, few shot prompting, zero shot prompting. The other thing you can do is adjust parameters like temperature, top P, or others specific to the LLM being used. These are the LLM settings. Each one and each combination or recipe should try a slightly different approach. So whether it's the tone, the length, the instruction, the different techniques you're using, or the settings, all of these different variants will create different behaviors in the model. You're essentially prototyping, just like you would with UI copy, onboarding flows, or feature names. So from there, you run the test inputs. You feed each prompt variant into a mix of real and messy user queries. You really want to simulate how users will actually interact with the system, not just the polished ideal cases. So again, users communicate in a lot of different ways. So you want to go through those examples before you ship any of your prompts. You want to include clear and concise inputs, vague or emotional ones, edge cases with things like spelling errors or ambiguity. This helps you really evaluate how robust and resilient your prompts are. It's like QA testing, but again, it's for language behavior. From there, you want to score your results Don't rely on vibes. Use a rubric to assess it across a few dimensions, things like clarity, helpfulness, brand tone, trustworthiness, accessibility. You can use any kind of rating system, and most importantly, involve your team. This is very much like a bug bash, right? We're all going to interact with the model based on these prompts that we provided, and we're going to see what the outputs are, and then we're going to rank the answers. The things with the best answers, those are the things that are going to get shipped so that we can iterate. We're going to take the strongest variant, we're going to improve it. We're going to add clarity, adjust tone, tighten the guardrails, and you really want to treat these prompts like a versioned product asset. So you want to record the changes and you want to track why you made them. So similar to if you're making a virtual world and you have an avatar, let's call it girl avatar, you name it girl avatar 1, and then you come back and you're like, oh, that avatar, their hair needs to be changed, their makeup needs to be changed, it's missing a freckle, right? So you change it to girl avatar 2. This is versioning your assets. You want to do the same thing with your prompts. This makes prompt behavior more predictable and it makes it more collaborative across teams. So it's really important to make sure that you're versioning your prompts. You also want to track these things in production. So once your best prompt is live, you want to keep watching it. Model behavior can drift, which means it can, when you roll it out, it could behave in a certain way, and then over time it starts to behave differently for no apparent reason. Inputs can change, edge cases will surface, so you definitely want to use customer qualitative and quantitative feedback to ensure that your model is still behaving the way that you expect it to. You can use things like a thumbs up, thumbs down rating. You can use escalation rates or how many interactions lead to requiring a human interaction. You can also just look at traditional engagement and retention metrics and see, do people drop off? Do people come back? Do they like it? So these signals will help you to know when it's time for you to re-enter the loop. Prompt performance is like really treated like any other live feature. You monitor it, you analyze it, and then you improve it. Once your prompt passes testing, you can move on to experimentation. This is where you optimize for real-world outcomes. And prompt experimentation is no different from testing a UI variant or an onboarding flow. You design multiple prompts that solve the same problem in slightly different ways. You show each to real users. You can use an A/B test or a multivariate test. And then you measure what matters. What matters to your business can change over time, or maybe it remains the same. User trust, engagement, monetization, support escalation really depends on specifically what service are you providing to your customers. The best part of all of this is that a product manager can do it without code. They don't need backend access to iterate. So changing prompts can improve KPIs without any code deployment and often faster than traditional feature work. The TLDR is tools change, craft doesn't. Our product principles are durable regardless of the technology. New tools still require product thinking and product leaders, and no, LLMs will not replace us. Our role is to provide judgment, and it's crafted through making sure that we are always the voice of the customer. We're focused on the quality of the experience, and we understand the business outcomes that we are driving through product evolution. This thinking can be applied to any kind of product, logic-based products, ML systems, or prompt-driven features. You can just think of it as using language instead of Sketch or Figma to design flows. The creative judgment, the product instincts, the data that you use, all those things still matter most of all. So let's wrap things up. Number one, prompts are real products. We should treat them the way that we treat all other products by applying our core product management skills. You, as a product manager or aspiring product manager, already have the instincts, the frameworks that you need to build and iterate on a prompt-powered product. You just need to apply them to language instead of logic. And ultimately, tech is going to keep changing throughout our lives. And even though the tech changes, our craft doesn't. People are always going to need product managers like you. So here are some additional resources you can leverage if you're interested in learning more. Most of them are free, they're beginner friendly. The prompt layer link is great if you want to visualize version prompt performance over time. And you can use a model to find more, and you can practice your prompts to find more. So I encourage you to try that out. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to watch this presentation, and I want to thank the product school for giving me the opportunity to share some of my knowledge. Like I said, I stream on Twitch at a mom in tech, so throw me a follow, and I hope to see you all in chat. Have a good one.